Today we have assembled here as a part of Sadhana Saptah, which started from 2nd of April and will continue till 10th of April, and which is a government initiative aimed at strengthening the governance system through learning and continuous capacity building of ministries, departments and state governments. Today, as a part of Sadhana Saptah, Directorate of Skill Development has organized this workshop where we will be talking about gender equality and inclusion in government policy making. And in that regard, we will first understand the concepts and we will try to understand how these terms like gender equality and inclusion creates an impact in the government policy making, and why are they so important to be considered while developing any policy by the government or while formulating any scheme for the government. We will also be trying to see what is the scenario right now we have in the state in comparison to our national indicators, and we'll see what all we need to do to make sure that there is a continuous and sustainable development for our state, that is Tripura, and how do we ensure that. So as the presentation part of the whole initiative, now I would first like to take all of you through the concepts. So today's theme, as I mentioned, is understanding gender equality and inclusion in government policy making. Now the first thing which I would like to refer is what is gender. Next slide please. Gender. So what is gender? What do we understand by gender? Gender is a very common term and we all hear the term gender in our everyday life. So it is always there. But do we really understand what a gender is and how we also fall into that discourse which happens in the society, and how do we look at gender? So gender is a term which is socially constructed, which is developed through socially constructed roles, behaviors, activities and attributes that a society considers appropriate for men, women and gender diverse identities. So when you talk about gender, gender is nothing else but a socially constructed role. So the society tells us that, why I am masculine or why I am feminine. So it is absolutely sociologically developed construct. It's not that we get it right at birth. So I would also take you through what is the difference between sex and gender. There is a difference between the two, but these two terms are utilized synonymously in our everyday discussions. So when we go to this, that what is the difference between the sex and the gender. Next slide please. Yes. So you see, when you talk about sex, this is the biological attributes which are given based on the physiological characteristics at birth. So a boy or a girl, it is designed, it is defined right at the birth, looking at the physiological characteristics, which is fixed. But when you talk about gender, gender is not fixed. Gender is a socially constructed role. So as a human being from birth grows, and from a boy comes to the youth and the man, and similarly for a girl. So the society tells us that these are certain things, these are the roles, this is the behavior which is suitable for a man, which is suitable for a woman, which is suitable for a boy, which is suitable for a girl. So that's how we within ourselves develop this understanding that okay, so this is, as a boy, this is what I'm supposed to do. As a girl, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so as a girl, what are the things I'm not supposed to do? Or as a boy, what are the things that I'm not supposed to do? I'll just give an example. Like, generally we say, boys don't cry. Okay? Which is a very gender biased statement in terms of where it is stereotyping that boys can't cry. It's shameful for a boy to cry. So it's associated with a stigma, with a discrimination towards the boy. Similarly for girls, for girl it has to have long hair. So unless and until you have long hair, you are not considered to be like, you know, a proper girl, you are a tomboy or that kind of thing. So these are the roles, these are the associations which we as a society attached to these different identities that we have. So masculinity, femininity, or even the transgender, which we all know, even LGBTQ terms that we have. I'm not getting into that, the communities, but looking at masculinity, femininity, and transgenders and all, these are all social constructs. So this is all sociologically we develop. Sociologically these are constructed, and this is the society what defines accordingly. So as I said, the gender exists as a social construct, which is gender roles or norms. So there are certain parameters which a boy is supposed to follow or a girl is supposed to follow. So and because of it, what happens is at times, and most of the times in our families, in the society, we see that there's a lot of discrimination which is happening. There's a lot of stigma happens, and mostly the vulnerable group are the girls or the women. So if you look at any family deciding on where to put on money for the education of a boy or girl, the gender bias goes towards the boy. That they will put the boy to a private school, or they will invest the money for the education of the boys, but not for the girls. Because the thinking is, after a certain age, girls are supposed to marry, they're supposed to go to some other household, and they are supposed to do the cooking, take care of the household. So that is again the gender bias that we have in the society, assigning roles to the boys and the girls, leading to stigma and discrimination. So as we move forward, we will see how this actually impacts the overall development of a state and a nation per se. Next slide, please. So if we talk about gender equality, so what is gender equality? When we talk about gender, definitely the next term which comes is equality. So where is the equality and what is gender equality? So gender equality is meaning equal rights, equal responsibilities and opportunities for all gender. It recognizes that gender roles are socially constructed and varied across cultures. Of course, it varies across cultures. In some cultures, what is acceptable is not something which is acceptable in some other cultures. Like we all know, in Meghalaya, we have a matrilineal family system where the girl, when she gets married, the groom comes to her family, takes her surname. So that's a matrilineal kind of society that they have. So those social constructs that they have is very different from the other parts of the country where there is a patriarchal, patriarchal society per se. So that's what I meant, that varied across culture. Different culture have different kind of norms, roles, which is decided by that society. So now, when you talk about equality, definitely, next slide please. So definitely we will talk about the sustainable development goals. We all know about sustainable development goals. What is sustainable development goals? Sustainable development goals is something which is decided by all the countries that by 2030, we are already in 2026, by 2030 we will achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. So that is what the world is trying to achieve for the girls and the women, to ensure there is a gender equality in this world. Now, why it is important? Why are we going to focus on gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls? So women and girls represent half of the world's population, but gender equality still exists. Even though women and girls almost have the 50% of the population, but there are discriminations, inequalities which is all across, and hence it is very important to look into that part, that how do we empower them to ensure there is a equality in the world. Second, on average, women in the labour market still earns 23% less than men. Same work which is done by a man and a women is paid much lesser than the men. So that shows the inequality which exists in the labour market. And also, if we talk about labour market participation, we see a lot lesser proportion of women is participating in the labour market. And after COVID-19, there has been a sharp decline in the participation of women in the labour market. So that's again alarming that why women are not able to access the labor market. Then women spend about 3 times as many hours in unpaid domestic and care work as men. So the household work or child care, all those work that women put in, that goes for unaccounted for. So that is never considered as labor. So that's also there, that there is a gender inequality inbuilt into that. Sexual violence and exploitation, unequal division of unpaid care, domestic work and discrimination in public office all remains to be the huge barriers. And all these contributes to the inequality that is still existing, and we've been talking about gender equality since I don't know how many decades, but still we have to talk. We have come a long way, but there is a lot that we have to do to ensure the world is gender equal and we have the equality. Can you go to the next slide, please? So if we take a deep dive into the sustainable development goals, which where the target is to achieve gender equality for all women and girls by 2030. So there are certain activities which has been undertaken, which we must do to ensure that the equality is brought and women and girls get their due credit or due contribution into this whole thing. So first is end all forms of discrimination against all women and girls everywhere. So as I say, discrimination starts from family. So even when a girl is going to school, if you see, I'll show you the data for Tripura, where we see the class 8 dropout rates are much higher amongst girls in comparison to boys. So there are an n number of reasons why a girl has to drop out from the school. Access to school, maybe where she lives and where the school is, the distance is too much and she can't go there on their own. Second is due to even reasons like non-availability of girl toilet in the school is also one reason of dropout. Third is menstrual hygiene. So during those days when the girl has her periods, she doesn't know where to go wash herself and all. So there are many more reasons which acts as a barrier, in terms of ensuring there is a barrier towards her access towards different services, towards her education, and finally leading to discrimination. So second is eliminate all forms of violence against all women and girls in the public and private spheres, including trafficking and sexual and other types of exploitation. So when you talk about trafficking, human trafficking, majority portion of trafficking actually happens for women and girls. And they are being trafficked to different places from where it becomes very difficult to kind of identify them, get them back. So when she is trafficked, it's not only her life which is at stake and she doesn't know where she is leading to, her health is at stake and everything. Also the family behind is suffering. So trafficking and sexual violence. So we see a lot of sexual violence also these days, even eve teasing. Okay, that's also a kind of sexual violence. It's an abuse. Using abusive words, showing without her consent, showing her pictures which are not appropriate. So there are different kind of abuses which exist, and women and girls are every day they face this kind of violence. So the point is that the violence happens, and most of the times maybe the women and girl doesn't know even that that's an abuse, or that's a kind of violence which is being done to her, and that's a norm, because that's where the social norm comes. Because when suppose she is hit by someone, even after marriage, we have seen in domestic violence cases where the husband is hitting the wife, and then the family members say, oh, it's okay, he's a man and it's okay if he has hit you, don't worry. They don't realize that's an abuse. That's where her dignity has been abused. So unless and until she understands all of that, she's never able to raise her voice even. So, to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls in different spheres of life, not only in family, in community level, in schools, in offices, in public spaces, parks, everywhere. So that needs to be eliminated. Third point is eliminate all harmful practices like child and early and forced marriage and female genital mutilation. So there are very harmful practices across the world. Now if we particularly talk about our state, so we know we have a very high proportion of child marriage being reported in Tripura. So that becomes one of the concerns which acts as a barrier towards the gender equality and inclusion. So I'll come to those points later, but first of all we'll just go through what all has been decided to be eliminated. Second, and then fourth point is recognize and value unpaid care and domestic work. So a mother who puts in her 24 hours into the family 24/7, she does all the household work, cooking, cleaning, laundry, taking care of the children, making sure the children are studying, everything. So but that is completely unpaid work, and no volume of amount of money is being attached to it. So that economic the economic gain that, or economic empowerment that she should have got is not there. In fact, today in the parliament, one of the members have raised this issue that how this unpaid care and domestic work that women is done can be looked into and reviewed. Then point 5, ensure women's full and effective participation in equal opportunities. That's a very important point. So when we talk about equal opportunities and when we talk about effective participation, we know there has to be enabling environment which would provide them the equal opportunity and will provide them the participation. So unless and until women get the platform where she can talk about herself, talk about her issues, talk about the solutions that she can bring in, how will she have a stake in the whole equality thing? She can't. So ensuring that she is able to participate in different forums of the society, in different, in her family, where she can have a decision-taking ability, where she can take a decision about her life, about her work, about her family. That's very important. And equal opportunities in terms of where I say that a boy is preferred to be given more opportunities than a girl. So that needs to be, made sure that all the boys and all the girls get similar kind of opportunity. Now we all know, like we'll just take an example of our state also, since we work with Directorate of Skill Development and we have been training a lot of youth, both boys and girls, for the skill development and different programs. And what we have seen when it comes to taking up a job and going out of the state to take job and for the placement offers, we have seen most of the girls, majority of the girls would say the family would not permit, isn't so? Where in comparison to boys, where there is a little high proportion who would still like to go, explore, join jobs outside the state or not. So not giving her the opportunity, not giving her the right even to decide for herself is something which is also considered to be one of the factors for gender inequality. Then point number 6, ensure universal access to sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights. That's again one of the most important thing, because we all know the girl or the woman is the one who brings the child to this world, the next generation. But if her health condition is not right and she is not given the proper care, she does not get the proper nutrition, she doesn't have the access to health facilities, then she herself is in a tricky situation. So even her reproductive rights, like most of the, if you look into the data, NFHS data, you see girls getting married and within a year she is becoming pregnant. Most of the girls who are getting married, within a year they are becoming pregnant. So that shows that also, where somewhere the unmet need is there. So how many women, married women are able to decide when does she want to become pregnant? How many children she wants to give birth to? And those decisions, is she able to take or not? That empowerment is something that needs to be bring in, and women and girls have to be empowered enough so that she can take those decisions. And also in terms of adolescent girls, when they go, as the girl goes to the puberty, so talking about the menstrual hygiene, talking about the sexual health, those kind of counseling systems has to be brought in place where she can go talk, gather the information, correct information, so that she can take care of herself. Point number 7, undertake reforms to give women equal rights to economic resources. Most important thing, we have been talking about how women can have better access to livelihoods, how she can be economically independent, and she can lead a life so that she can decide on her own what she wants to do, and how she wants to lead her life. So economic resources, that's where we play a very key role. Directorate of Skill Development has been focusing to ensure that the girls also get access to skills and get the skills of as per their aspirations, and then they are able to get into the labor market, join a job or turn into an entrepreneur and have an entrepreneurship, at least get into that livelihood, that economic empowerment for themselves. Point number 8, enhance the use of adaptive technology. Now, as technology is changing very fast, it's very dynamic. Every day we see a higher version, advanced version of technology coming up. So we also ensure that girls are able to access those avenues, those possibilities by using technology. So again, we need to understand in the rural areas how far, what is the penetration of the technology, and in the urban areas also how much the women are able to access them. Are they equipped? Are they skilled enough to know that how to use this technology in their favor? So those kind of things also we have to ensure that is brought in. Point number 9, adopt and strengthen sound policies and enforceable legislation for the promotion of gender equality and empowerment to all women and girls at all levels. So that's again a very broad thing, which is more of a legal framework, more of the government policies that needs to be brought in, which would ensure the women are safe and women have the right to access to different facilities, different services which are being provided. They have access to their protection, they have access to their legal rights, they have access to their education, they have access to nutrition, and overall, and then finally empowered enough to have a better livelihood, to have a economic empowerment for themselves. Next slide please. So when we talk about gender, the main question is why gender matters. Why are we talking about gender so much? Why are we bothered about gender? Why is it important to understand how, what role gender plays or how critical gender is? So we all know that in India, India is a patriarchal society, and based on that there are, and because of that, there are social norms, there are social, guidelines, and there are rules, so many things for girls and men also, but mostly for girls. So, and there is a gender disparity in education, work, health, and if you look into the indicators, we will see there is a striking difference between boys and girls for different indicators that we have for gender equality, which ultimately leads to the national development and the social justice of a country, of a state. Now, what are the implications? So it hampers the economic growth. If you don't talk about gender and there is a gender equality, it hampers the economic growth. It slows down the economic growth of a country. And social inclusion becomes very difficult. So for social inclusion, we need to understand gender. We need to ensure that everyone is taken into considerations, and those policies and the schemes are not only made for one category or one type of target group, but it is for everyone. And the policies and the schemes are to be developed in such a way so that everyone can access that and have a participation and have an inclusion approach in it. And of course, the health and well-being of the population ultimately matters a lot. Next slide please. So, as I was saying, how is it measured in a country or in a state? How do you know if we are gender equal or gender unequal, And if you have gender inequal indicators, where are you? Where do we need to focus on? Where do the government schemes, government guidelines need to focus on? So first, one of the indicators is sex ratio. How many females are there per 1,000 males? So that is one thing. Literacy rate. What is the literacy rate between men and women? Labor force participation. What proportion of men are participating in the labor market vis-a-vis the proportion of women? Gender wage gap that I talked about, that what for same kind of work, what is the wage that a man is getting in comparison to a woman? Then we are also talking about political representation, that how many women are there in the parliament, how many women are representing themselves in the assemblies. That's participation and creating the enabling environment. Then health indicators. What is the maternal mortality rate? What are infant mortality rate? What is the nutritional status? All those kind of things. Those are the indicators. Now let's take a look at how the indicators look for Tripura. So I have taken here NFHS 5 data as well as Census 2011 data. And if we look into it, that in sex ratio we are doing fairly well in comparison to the national data. So for national, in the country level, we have 943 women per females per 100,000 males, whereas in Tripura we have 960 females per 1,000 males. If we look at child sex ratio, that's also we are doing fairly well. So we are above the national average. Even female literacy in Tripura is much higher, at 83% in comparison to what is at a country level. But look at infant mortality rate. So infant mortality rate, we are much higher than the national average. That means more children within the age of 1, from 0 to 12 months, are dying in Tripura in comparison to national average. So we have more children below 12 months of age dying in our state, which is a concern. Maternal mortality rate, we have lower maternal mortality rate than national average. Child marriage, which is huge for Tripura, 40% of the child marriage in comparison to national average of 23%, which is a point of concern for the state. Teenage pregnancy, definitely much higher than the national average, because when we see there's a lot of child marriage happening, definitely it will lead you to higher teenage pregnancy. As I mentioned, that within a year of getting married, most of the girls get pregnant, because that's a social norm that you have to kind of produce a heir to the family within a year of marriage. And then if you look at overall dropout rate at class A is 3 to 6%, whereas 50% are girls. So a very high proportion of girls drop out at class A. And an analysis of the data showed that girls drop out at class A due to different reasons. One of the reasons in Tripura is also because of the marriage. Because when we link it, we know the girl is dropping out and getting married. So which is leading to a child marriage. And then when child marriage happens, there is a teenage pregnancy. When there is a teenage pregnancy, there is either maternal mortality or an infant mortality. Because the girl, physiologically, she is not prepared. She has not yet reached 18 when her body is ready to become pregnant and give birth. Or she is anemic, leading to again bad health for the infant who is born. And then it goes on. The cycle just goes on, leading to much more complications to that teenage girl who got married and became pregnant. Next slide, please. Okay, let's take a look at what's the status of women in Tripura. So I said that in the female literacy rate is much higher in comparison to the national average, and women's workforce participation is significantly high in agriculture, handloom and bamboo-based industries. But that's where our, the industries that we have in Tripura are mainly bamboo-based, or rubber we have, or handloom we have, and hence the participation is much higher in those sectors, but not in other sectors. Agriculture, we all know, across the country, women participation is always high, labor participation in agriculture, but not in other sectors, not in manufacturing sectors or in any other service sectors. So then we also have active participation in SHGs and local government. So we see we have a very good network of SHGs in the state, and also we have a very good participation of women in the local government system, like in panchayats and all. So we see female participating in that, which actually talks about that we are giving them a platform where they can participate, where they can talk about their issues, where they can talk about their concerns and how to kind of address those. Then but what happens is, despite progress, challenges persist, including role representation in decision making and gender-based violence. We see a lot of issue in terms of child marriage, which is again one form of gender-based violence, because the family is biased. The girl has to get married, so get her married as early as possible, get her dropped out from school, get her married off, so that the responsibility is not with the family, but it's on some other family. And then there are a number of reasons behind it. It could be poverty, it could be chance of the girl getting eloped, or even social norms to ensure that she gets married at the earliest possible. Then when you talk about the political representation in the state, we see that Tripura has made very good progress in women's political participation. So the state legislative assembly has actually reserved seats for women participation representatives, and recent elections, what we have seen, has shown a noticeable increase in women's candidature and representation, which is very good sign in terms of how Tripura is progressing for ensuring the women's participation and gender equality in the state. And then women participation in local governance, as I mentioned, is already due to the 33% reservation which is being made. We are getting a lot many women coming into it and talking about it, which actually ensures that this path is towards equality, gender equality is already being paved. Next slide please. But gender equality is not something which happens in a day or in a year. It's a process. It takes time. So as I say, that United Nations have been talking about gender equality. First it was Millennium Development Goals, then it is Sustainable Development Goals, and one cross-cutting thing which was present was gender equality. So we have been talking about gender equality for quite some time, for a long time, and I'm sure we have to keep on talking about it for next couple of years or decades. So as it is a process, so we feel achieving gender equality is a continuous and multifaceted process. First thing is, to ensure gender equality, we need to create awareness. Every girl, every woman needs to know about her rights, her constitutional rights, her roles that she has to play, her the social norms, the laws which protects women and girls, and also how to address the discrimination and stigma. So through proper counseling, proper access to the services which would help her in terms of understanding her rights, ensuring she understands the law, ensuring that she knows where to go, how to approach the judiciary, the police, everyone. So those sensitization, creating the awareness across different facets of the society is very important to ensure the gender equality. That's the first thing. Second is, once the awareness is built and the girl or the woman knows about her rights, her laws, constitutional rights, where all she can go for help, where all she can approach to get counseling, to get access, the confidence level goes up. So she is well aware about herself and she knows what to do. And the confidence level helps to believe in herself. That's a process. So once she starts believing in herself, she knows where to act, what to do. Third is access to resources. She should be given through government policies, through government schemes, the women or the girl should have access to any kind of resources, be it education, be it skill development, be it healthcare, be it financial linkages, be it entrepreneurship, anything. She should have access to all that opportunities which are also available to any man or any boy for that matter. So it should be, opportunities should be equally available to both boys and girls. Equip women with tools that are necessary for women to participate more fully in social and economic life. And then participation and involvement. Once she knows where to access the resources, she becomes more confident, and then the participation and involvement comes where she feels that now I can go and get myself engaged in some economic activity or in livelihood generation, or I can participate in the local governance, and then she gets a path in terms of how she wants to navigate. Then control and decision making. Most important part is, where women, when you talk about empowerment, the basic point is if she is able to take the decisions of her life on her own or not. If she's earning, if she has the control to decide how she wants to use her money. If she is doing something, if she has the ability or if she has the power to decide on her own. Decision making is one of the most important part of the empowerment. Unless and until she has the confidence and she doesn't know how to take decision in her life, then that's not empowerment. True empowerment is when she is able to take decisions of her life, based on her own judgments. Collective empowerment, when we know that when women come together, they support each other and then push for systemic changes. We have many case studies across the country where we have seen. Seva is one of the examples in Gujarat where all women came together and they started a community-based organization, and they actually transformed their lives together. How they changed their livelihood. So that collective empowerment is also different. We have examples in Tripura also. We have self-help groups who are doing extremely well, and all the women coming together and developing a support group for each other, and they have started initiatives and they are now economically empowered and they are able to take their own decisions. So we have many case studies, many success stories within our state also to look into. Next slide please. Gender equality, the dimensions. So when we talk about gender equality, there are different dimensions which are to be considered when you say that we are in a gender equal society, or yes, the state is gender equal and our country is gender equal. How do we get into that? First is definitely the economic empowerment. Any woman, any girl who has the financial independence and she is participating in the economy on equal terms. So there is no wage discrepancy. So equal wage for men and women, equal working hours, lot many things. She is. So one of another example is, in some of there was an argument couple of days before when it was talked about that do we make menstrual leave policy mandatory or not, and that the counter argument was, in that case some of the employers might not like to engage women because they have to give mandatory 3 days leave every month to that women, because she has the right to access for the menstrual period leave. So there's a lot of arguments for and against different things. So that's something which is still debatable. But yes, there is a need to ensure that women still has financial independence and participates in the economy. Then we are talking about social empowerment. How women can improve her social standing in the society. Is she to be looked at only as a caregiver, or she can also establish herself not only as a caregiver but also have a career of her own and have economic empowerment and contributing to the family in economic terms. So that is, and also building up social networks, her own support systems, and then how does she take that leap in the society. So that also very important. Political empowerment, as I already mentioned, that political empowerment is where we give enough space, enough platform, and so that women can participate and ensure they are also a part of the governance and they are able to contribute to the whole government framework. Legal empowerment, access to legal rights, protection and justice. Psychological empowerment. So women's self-esteem, confidence improves when she has the correct knowledge, she knows what to do, where to go, where she can get the counseling, where she can access, how she can earn money, and she is skilled enough. So that psychological empowerment is also required to uplift her self-esteem. Cultural empowerment, of course, looking at how women can contribute better in cultural and creative domains. Health empowerment, where she knows, again, where she is able to take care of her health, her nutrition, and she can make informed choices for her well-being. Next slide, please. Okay. So now when we talk about inclusion, we have talked about gender, we have talked about gender equality, and then the third component is inclusion. What is inclusion? Inclusion means ensuring that all individuals, especially the marginalized groups like women, girls, STC communities, minorities, transgenders, persons with disabilities, everyone has equal access to opportunities, resource, services and decision-making processes. So it's all about ensuring that no one is left out, everyone is taken into consideration, and this is one of the most important points which has to be kind of considered while developing any government policy or government scheme. And the policy and the scheme success of those depends on how better on how inclusive that scheme is developed, like which are the group of people are taken into consideration into that scheme. Next slide, please. So when you talk about the inclusion in government policies, what does it do? Why do we consider inclusion while developing the government policies? So it addresses the structural inequality. So there is already there is an inequality in the society. So how do we address those? How do we ensure that we bring in equality? So through government policies, we try to bring in equality. So policies that target the most vulnerable women and girls and ensure the interventions are focusing on them, which would have an impact in reducing the high child marriage, high teenage pregnancy, gender gaps in health outcomes. These are some of the examples that I am giving, but that's one of the things that the government policies addresses when we take inclusion into consideration. Then it improves human development outcomes, like whenever there are schemes and policies which are made catering to the need of these women who are in need of better services in health, or pregnant women who are there, lactating mothers who are there. The focus schemes for them ensures there is a reduction in the infant mortality rate, maternal mortality ratio is improved, and the nutritional status of the adolescent girls and mothers have improved. Then converts literacy into real empowerment. So we have high literacy in our state, but how do we convert that into the real empowerment? So that's through skill development, through awareness building, through education. We ensure that we are converting that literacy and the dividend that we have to get, so that we convert literacy into the real empowerment. Enhances economic growth. Again, focus schemes which focuses on enhancing the financial linkages, subsidy schemes, the different entrepreneurship schemes, which helps in ensuring that have better access towards the economic growth. This ensures equity, not just equality. Now there is a difference between equity and equality. Equality is all about ensuring that it has similar kind of services to everyone. But what is equity? Equity is ensuring the outcome is similar for everyone. So outcome is the final, result that we are looking for across different groups for women and girls. Next slide please. Now when we look into different government schemes and see how they have tried to brought in gender equality in our, not only in our state but also in the country. We have Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, which focuses on skill development programs not only for boys but for girls also. We have a state focused scheme which is Mukhyamantri Dakhata Unnayan Prakalpa, which also provides advanced skill training on different sectors and upgradation of traditional skills and promotion of overseas placements amongst both boys and girls. So it is ensuring that girls have equal access to different advanced skilling within the state. Then we have Muktadhara schemes which promote self-reliance through the SHGs and skill training. Ujjala Yojana, which was introduced to ensure that enhanced clean cooking solution for rural women. We have Beti Bachao and Beti Padhao scheme, which was focusing on educating the girl child and preventing female infanticide. Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana, which is already there, which provides maternity benefit program for pregnant women and lactating mothers in the state. We have Mukhyamantri Samajik Sahayata Prakalpa, which also provides pension support to the widows and the vulnerable women. And then Sukarna Samriddhi Yojana, small savings scheme to promote education and marriage for girl child. Promote education and marriage in terms of marriage after she has attained her adulthood. One-stop centers which provides support for women facing violence, wherever she is. So these are some of the schemes, some of the interventions which has already been introduced in our state to ensure that through these schemes we are focusing on gender equality, because women are getting better access to protection, to education, to health, to skills, and actually helping them to have an empowered women and girl in our state. Next slide please. So we also have a Tripura State Policy for Empowerment of Women 2022, which was introduced by government, and this very clearly lists out that what are the different benefits that the women of our state are going to get through it. So 33% reservation in government jobs has already been ensured through this policy, which helps in, this is an historical example where it helps to address the gender imbalance and promotes the economic independence of women in the state. Focuses on education. The policy focuses on ensuring that every girl child has access to education, women has access to skill development, vocational trainings, and can uplift them, their livelihood situation or the economic status within the state. Legal support and protection. So there are many interventions which have been introduced, like we have women-friendly police stations in the state, we have one-stop centers for women, and there is a helpline which is being introduced. So there are many things which have been introduced to ensure that there is enough protection and access to protection is given to the women. Focus on maternal and health and nutrition. So this policy also highlights the need for improving the health and nutritional status of women, so that with better provision, better access of healthcare services, it not only improves the maternal health but also takes care of the child health. Next slide please. Now when we come to the conclusion, we understand that gender equality and inclusion are fundamental pillars of a sustainable development, and government schemes are the powerful enablers and catalysts for gender equality. So what we have seen is, while Tripura shows a lot of progress in literacy, sex ratio, women's participation, there are key challenges which still exist, like child marriage, teenage pregnancy, and limited decision making power which is still there. So those are the things on which we need to focus on, we need to work on, we need to ensure that these barriers are also, we handle these barriers and ensure that there is a gender equality in our state too, we can introduce. Inclusive, so policy making ensures that marginalized groups, especially women and girls, are not left behind and can have full access to different opportunities that we have. Converting education into empowerment, where we talked about that, why skill development is so important, and through skill development how women and girls can be empowered and how they can have a better livelihood access and leading to their economic empowerment. And then overall a multidimensional approach, economic, social, political, legal and health, is very important while designing the government schemes or the government policies to ensure it's a sustainable kind of thing and it has a long-term impact in our society. Next slide please. So what is the way forward? We have strengthened, we strengthen the gender sensitive policies and implementation. We ensure we focus on evidence-based policy development. We include gender budgeting in every scheme so that we address the issues related to gender equality in a very focused way. We focus on skill development and employment for women. We give the platform so that women has better access to skill development and also to their livelihood empowerment. And then we enhance effective convergence of schemes and monitoring, which would ensure that there is not only equality but also equity in the state. Thank you so much.